Chapter 5, Managing Staff Performance. Many of you have played organized sports before. Who's had a great coach? What made that coach great? If I think back on my organized sports playing days, I think of my college coach. I swam for the University of North Dakota. And our college coach was great. He had a wonderful, great winning record. But the things that he did is that he encouraged us. He motivated us. He let us know when we were doing well. He also talked to us when there were things that we needed to do differently, when we needed to make a change. He once said that, "I don't cut you from the team. You cut yourself." He was a great coach. What made your coach great? Chapter 5 is about managing staff performance. And performance management is the process of achieving the business goals by building and working with your staff. A performance-oriented manager needs to address the same things as a coach. What's the game plan, and does everyone understand it? Are the right players on the team and in the right positions? Do the players know what is expected of them and how their performance will be measured? Feedback during the game so that they know how they are doing and what they could do better. If doing well, let them know. And if they need to make a change, let them know that as well. So managing your staff is often like a coach managing the same things, managing the personnel on the team or in the organization. The first thing you need to do, though, as a new manager is develop a management style. And it takes a while to develop your own management style, and there's many basic approaches to management style, and some of the key elements are playing to your strengths, be who you are, keep the focus on goals, and try to link all performance to financial and strategic goals, limit tasks, projects, and targeted outcomes to a manageable number, tailor your approach to individual staff members. Do this by daily contact, weekly review meetings, emails, whatever it may be. I think back to when I was managing staff over at the Parks, Rec, and Forestry Department. I had full-time staff that I had to manage, and I think about tailoring my approach in how I manage some of the staff. And I'll give you an example. My recreation program coordinator, she took detailed notes on everything. We'd have a discussion and she would take detailed notes. She'd have to review her notes, take a little bit of time. She'd develop some questions, she'd come back, she'd ask questions, make sure that she understood. Very meticulous, cautious process, and then she would go ahead with the task that needed to be done. On the flip side, my department secretary, she needed to know why she was doing something. And if that wasn't clear, she probably wasn't going to do it. She also wanted to know what was her part. What did she need to do in order for this goal to be accomplished? And I distinctly remember her just being like, "What, Rebecca? What am I supposed to do? How am I a part of this?" So you have to tailor your approach to meet your individual staff members. And one of the key things in developing a management style is to really keep in mind that you are most successful, or at least the most successful management style is succeeding through the success of others. So when your staff is successful, you are going to be successful. You can't do every last thing at your facility, your organization. You need the help of your staff. And when your staff are successful, it reflects very positively on you. They're excited, they're happy, they're motivated to be there. You need to succeed through the success of others. You have to be willing to let others have the limelight, be the center of attention, accomplish the things for the organization. And I really want to encourage you to not be afraid as a manager to do the menial stuff. And think about where those entry-level positions are at and what the things they are doing. I guarantee you're going to get a lot more respect from your staff if you're willing to get down there and help set up tables and chairs, help clean up a mess that needs to be done. Maybe you need to cover the front desk while they go to the restroom. any of those menial tasks that we sometimes refer to them as we move up the chain, if you're not afraid to do those, I think your staff is going to find a lot more respect for you. So it's something to keep in mind. The book talks about managing with an open book philosophy. And if you look to page 82 in your book, they have something called a club scorecard. And they suggest that the key things that you want to share with your staff are sales numbers, termination rate, performance results, class average attendance, making sure that staff are aware of all promotions. If they're not familiar with it, it's hard to promote it. And if a member asks them a question and they don't know, it doesn't always look positive. It doesn't bode well for a lot of the members. And you want to use these results to also demonstrate how each position, the role, can affect club's financials. It can affect the entire outcome for the club. Let's keep in mind that IHRSA has shown us that the greater the staff turnover, the less your member retention. So the open book philosophy isn't about sharing disciplinary issues, personnel issues. It's about sharing the goals for this organization and the success or failures along the way in meeting those goals, those objectives for the organization. The book comes back to succeeding through the success of others. The job of the manager is to ensure the achievement of club goals through the most effective and efficient use of resources. It's about the organization. You want to remove the barriers that prevent staff members from performing well. And you want to derive your satisfaction from the success of others and share the credit. These are the most successful managers. It is often called the servant leadership model. And there's lots of books out there on this, but definitely the most successful organizations are built on this servant leadership model, where you're succeeding through the success of others. One of the key things is determining the identity of the facility. What did Pete say the Prairie Athletic Club was known for? I'm sure most of you know this, that it was family-oriented. It was a family-run organization. It's targeting families and children, and they have things from birth all the way up the age range. The first task for the performance-oriented manager is to establish the club's competitive strategy and business goals. The staff should be on board and be able to promote the identity of the club. So you need to determine what is your club's purpose and what is it trying to accomplish. Is your club known for its senior fitness, its children's wellness, sports, aquatics, sports conditioning? Is it known as an adult-only place? Is it a family-oriented place? Is it for younger adults, older adults? Any of those things. We need to know what the club's purpose and what it's trying to accomplish. Here are some of the steps that we've had so far in managing performance. Back in Chapter 2, you define the job, you clarify the job expectations. In Chapter 3, you hired the best candidate. We spent a lot of time talking about that. Chapter 4 talks about training and orienting the new hire. This chapter focuses in on setting goals, performance feedback, as well as discipline and termination. Chapter 6 is going to be about recognition and compensation. We have two key methods when it comes to measuring job performance. One is setting goals with the employees. Start with a job description, 3 to 5 main responsibilities. List ongoing tasks and areas of accountability for each responsibility, and then develop performance goals from there. We had this when I was at the Sun Prairie Parks Rec and Forestry Department. We had to set goals each and every year related to our main areas of responsibility, and then we tried to achieve those goals throughout the year. The thing that was also done was I evaluated myself, my supervisor also evaluated me, and then we sat down and we compared those evaluations and discussed that evaluation. Did I meet those goals? What ways could I improve upon those goals? How could I change it for the following year? So we basically did things independently, and then we came back together and reviewed it together. The other key thing is providing performance feedback, and this is often called a review or an evaluation. Often this happens yearly in our organizations. You'll get your yearly review, and then you might get a raise based off of the results of your yearly review. So one of my questions for you is, what should a staff person get out of a performance review or an evaluation? If you go to page 89 in the text, it does provide you an example of a performance review. It's quite detailed. But what do you want your employees to get out of their review? Some of the things that we talked about in class also included the strengths they're bringing to the position, what they need to improve upon, definitely the things that they're doing well with the position. My partner even went on to talk about just, basic things, timeliness, being there on time, making sure that they don't have a high rate of absences. That's what they're getting out of the performance review. And then we also talked about how do you fairly evaluate multiple people in the same role. I think this can be very challenging. A lot of you mentioned using a template, having a template for that particular position, or just a general employee review that we use, so that we're comparing apples to apples, oranges to oranges. Keeping in mind that the positions, we might review different things based on the positions, but we're going to review all the people with regards to the same items. Now, how we sit down and talk to them about that might be different. Remember, we talked about it in a couple slides back that each person likes to be managed differently. And we also posed that question at the beginning of our class about how you like to be supervised. Everyone's going to approach that a little bit differently, and it behooves you to really know how your employees like to be supervised, because it will definitely be more effective if you're able to supervise them in the way that they like to be supervised. So providing performance feedback. Some of the guidelines that they talk about in the book is focusing in on successes. Request employee input and involvement. Find an appropriate setting. Start with positive feedback. Provide frequent informal feedback. I like this. I think it's problematic that you wait till the end of the year to discuss all things that may not be going as well as you like to. Provide frequent informal feedback, or set an opportunity to have a little check-in periodically throughout the year, rather than waiting till the end of the year to have it all dumped on a particular person, for lack of better terms, that is. Remember that less is more, so sometimes just focusing in on a couple of things rather than 25 things that need improvement. Be specific. It is hard to know, if you say something in general, well, you seem to not really care. Be specific. When approached about something, you told the person you did not have enough time, you weren't interested in doing that. Recent history is most helpful. So if you're waiting to December to evaluate and you're going back to January when something happened, first and foremost, people may not even remember what exactly happened. It's important to have the recent history. That's going to be most helpful. Have an open dialogue, so let that person talk to you about what they perceive as being their strengths, their weaknesses, goals for the organization. Define specific corrective actions. So set 30-day review. So we are going to do X, Y, and Z, and in 30 days we are going to come back and we are going to review how we are doing on X, Y, and Z. Offer to help. So maybe they don't know how to do something, and it's just sitting down and walking through it with them, maybe sending them to a training, just listening. And always think about ending on a positive note. They'll take more away from that if you ended positively than if you ended negatively. So if you could reward or recognize an employee for good performance or extra effort, any way that you want, how would you do it? And how often would you do it? some general ideas might be to thank people on a regular basis. Tell them that they did a good job when they've done a good job. Maybe send them an email periodically or a text message or give them a phone call. Other things might be to send a card or a note. You might just, even remembering birthdays or work anniversaries sometimes is a reward in and of itself. In some places you can do things like tickets to movies or games, buying lunch, offering longevity awards, gift certificates, providing a staff lunch. Maybe you can offer a paid day off or a paid exercise class. But basically you have to also know the organizational policies, and you need to know what your staff person likes. Some of the organizational policies say there's a no gift policy. You can't buy incentives with tax dollars. But maybe somebody doesn't necessarily want a free lunch. Maybe they just want to thank you. An email, a kind note, a card about that. Also, keeping in mind in some places, especially if you work for a nonprofit, if you give somebody something, the monetary value in which it would be is taxed. This can be very difficult. So if you reward an employee by giving them a gift certificate somewhere or free tickets, it could be considered taxable income. Incentive plans may be prohibited due to the nature of the organization. So nonprofit, hospital-based places also sometimes have challenges with incentive plans. One, because of the sheer cost of it. So if you do X, Y, and Z, like having a sales bonus, sometimes the private organizations, if you sell this many memberships in the month, you can get this bonus. Sometimes you can't do that in a nonprofit or a hospital-based organization. So you just have to be familiar with your organization. You also need to be familiar with your staff and what they see as recognition and rewards. Make sure that you ask them so you have a general idea of what they like and how they like to be recognized and rewarded. I have a staff person who she hated the attention. She didn't want to be recognized publicly for anything that she did. She was so embarrassed by it. She was a great staff person, but that's just not her personality. That wasn't what she liked. But if you sent her a sweet note or a card or maybe just even an email, she really, really appreciated that. She just didn't want a public display for her recognition. Oh, this is just the fun part here. Addressing performance problems. So, when an employee continues to have a performance problem and does not meet the expectations for the position, there's a few things that you want to do. One, have you made the expectations for the position clear? Two, can the performance problems be solved by training or coaching? Three, could this person be more successful in another position? And if not, is it necessary to make a change? Let's think about the following question. One of your lifeguards is routinely 5 to 10 minutes late for her shift. As the aquatics coordinator, do you address the situation? Why or why not? And if so, how? I would definitely address the situation. You may find this funny, but if you're 5 to 10 minutes late to a drowning, we have a serious problem. And the action of being late may also adversely be affecting the rest of the team. They may not feel that that person is reliable. It may also make someone else subsequently late and maybe they can't get somewhere they need to. I would definitely address the situation. I would start by asking them why they continue to be late. Do they understand the expectation of being to work on time and why it is so important? Maybe they have to take a sibling to school before they can come do the shift, and maybe we need to work something out so that the person beforehand stays a little later, this person's shift starts a little bit later, or they just can't get themselves out of bed on time and get over. So we would probably need to do some coaching, maybe some training in the situation. Maybe they need to look at a different role. something that does not require you to be there exactly at this time if they have continued problems of being late and this is adversely affecting the rest of the team. If not, I mean, we definitely want to tell them that there's penalties for being late. So depending on what you have established in your training and in your policies, if people can be disciplined, if they can lose pay, be sent home, all those things that adversely affect the rest of your team when you're doing it. But let's say that this person continues to be late. They just can't get it together to be there on time, and there's really not outside factors. They know what the expectation is. And now we need to consider making a change. So ultimately we need to consider terminating this individual. Before you terminate someone, you really want to think about the following items. Has the expectation been made clear to the employee regarding the performance standard or policy? Is the expectation, standard, or policy reasonably related to the employee's job? Has there been previous discussions with the employee about the problem or problems? And has any warning or notice been provided? Was it made clear that the consequences of a failure to meet the performance or behavior expectation could result in termination? Did the employee have a chance to explain? Are the same expectations in place for other employees in the same position, and are similar performance problems handled in the same way? Finally, is there anything in the employee handbook that contradicts the performance or behavior standard that could be used by the employee to argue against the decision to terminate? So you've decided to terminate. We've asked ourselves these questions, and now we need to be prepared with what we're going to say. I would suggest writing something up ahead of time so that you are prepared and you can get right to the point. We don't want to begin this meeting, this dialogue with small talk. It's not about the weather, not about how they're doing. We know what's going on. We want to be prepared with what we are going to say. You may need to have another person present for this as well, usually serving as a witness. They wouldn't necessarily say anything, but they're present. And the guidelines when it comes to termination is keep it brief. This is not a discussion. Get to the point. You want to speak decisively, calmly, without any anger or frustration. You want to accept personal responsibility for the decision. Don't stick the blame on the organization, so-and-so. No, I have decided to terminate you. Be respectful, be empathetic, be willing to listen, but do not get into a discussion or a debate. People could get very angry at this time. We're not going to get into debate. We're not going to get angry. We're not going to get frustrated. This takes a little bit on our end to stay calm and cool in the situation. You need to provide any final paperwork and any compensation due to this individual. And after the meeting, you want to document what was said, and you want to add this to the personnel file. The other things that you want to think about is that you want to collect anything from them, such as a badge, such as keys, anything that you need back for your organization. You want them to turn it in immediately. Don't let them go home, think about it. Don't let them go back to their computer, change their password, whatever it may be. It's done, it's over, you walk them out the door. This is just a safeguard for you as well. I've had this situation a few times throughout the course of my career. This is not a fun situation. I think that if you enjoy terminating someone, I think there's something wrong, honestly. Again, this is not a fun opportunity. This is a time in which we know that this person no longer can be successful in your organization. You need to cut ties, and you both need to move on. It's been scripted out in all of my situations except one. Scripted out, so you know what you're going to say. I have had to terminate some major positions and walk people out the door. One of our recreation program coordinators, and it was typed up, finalized, asked for the keys. You need to gather all your belongings at this time, and out the door that they went. Again, it can be a very uncomfortable situation, and you need to keep yourself calm. But hopefully you don't get to this point very often. With that being said, we will have the opportunity in class to do a couple role-playing scenarios with regard to discipline and termination.